Welcome again, Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm Clyde, one of the 6 Dharma leaders that we have here. Welcome everybody online. If you want to stretch for a moment. Well, like I said, I'm one of the 6 Dharma leaders here, and we just did a Dharma practice, and I'm getting ready to give a Dharma talk, or I'm giving a Dharma talk as we speak. And so we also, when we go on retreat, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Take refuge in the Dharma. And if we go to the Satipatthana Sutta, which is on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4th foundation is the contemplation of the Dharmas. So I've been using this word Dharma a lot. So the Dharma talk tonight is on what is the Dharma? What is this? What is this thing I've been using a lot? What is it? You've heard it a lot. One of the things, so I looked into it, and I found out there are like kind of 3 definitions of the Dharma that I came up with. The first one is what I call the big D. This is the big Dharma. This is the big D. And you may have, I'm going to do another thing too. You may have heard the word Dhamma. Dhamma is a Pali word. Dharma is a Sanskrit word. And I'm going to use Dharma because that's the one we're used to. The Pali word is Dhamma. The Dharma, the big D Dharma, is truth. It's reality. It's the true nature of things. It's the moral and spiritual law. It's the way things are. It's everything. Someone asked Ajahn Chah, what is Dharma? And he said, nothing isn't. Everything's within the Dharma. This includes things like the law of karma. And if I act out of unwholesome intentions, it's going to create more suffering. The 3 which are the 3 defilements: greed, hatred, and delusion. That's part of it. Dependent origination, where everything's rising and passing away. Everything has a cause and a condition is rising and passing away. Included things like impermanence, the 3 characteristics of existence. Impermanence, this fact that the idea that everything is kind of unsatisfactory and in suffering, and the idea that it's an impersonal nature. These are all things that enlightenment itself is even included within the Dharma. So this is the big D. This is everything. So now we go to the second definition. And the second definition is taken from the Satipatthana Sutta. It's each of the individual mental and physical elements that comprise the phenomenal world. It's the individual mental and physical elements that comprise the phenomenal world. I like to think of that as how I experience, how I live, how I experience my life. And if we look at this, the 4th foundation of mindfulness, we see things like the 5 hindrances. Did anybody have any sloth and torpor recently, like in the last 30 minutes? Aversion, greed, doubt, restlessness, and worry. These are all experiences that we have. The 5 aggregates of clinging are in there. The big one that existence is our 6 senses, like our taste, our sight, taste, smell, hearing, touch, and the biggie are our thoughts. This is how I interact with the world. This is how I know it's there. The 7 awakening factors are part of this. And then the 4 noble truths, the idea that there's suffering, there's some dissatisfaction, unease in the world, and we want to find a cause. There is a cause to it, and we want to find out how to reduce our suffering. These are all like elements of how I'm connecting, how I'm touching in with life. This is the Dharma. These are specific things. Thea talked about a couple weeks ago how the Dharma is showing up in her life, and that maybe some of these things are showing up in her life. Going back to Ajahn Chah again, he says, don't think that the Dharma lies far away from you. It lies right with you. It's about you. Take a look. 1 minute happy, the next minute sad, satisfied, then angry at this person, hating that person. It's all Dharma. So that's the second definition. The third definition of Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha didn't really invent the Dharma. It was just revealed to him through his practice. And he didn't really write down his teachings, nor did his disciples. It's said that shortly after his death, 500 of his disciples gathered for what is known as the First Council. Those particularly gifted at memorization recited what they remembered of his teachings, and the others in attendance committed them to memory. As tradition has it, the Buddha's teachings were finally written down in Sri Lanka at the end of the 1st century BCE, some 500 years after his death. So for a long time, it was an oral tradition, these teachings. But it is, so what was written down? What do we have? The teachings that we have are what we call the Pali Canon. And a lot of you are familiar with this. We're going to be talking more about this. In fact, when the Buddha became enlightened, he kind of hung around the Bodhi tree for a while, wondering, well, do I really want to teach this? Is anybody going to pay attention? Is anybody going to be able to get this? And then we get into some myths, some things happened, and he decided, yes, he was going to teach. And what they wrote down, though, 500 years after he died, was the Pali Canon, Pali being the word that they wrote down at this time. I don't know if that was what the Buddhists was speaking at the time, but that's what they wrote it in. And it's called the Tipitaka. It's the three baskets. The Pali Canon is the collection of primary Pali language texts which form the doctrinal foundation of Theravadan Buddhism. We're in the Theravadan tradition of Buddhism, and Thera means elders, Vada means word, so it's the word of the elders. There are three divisions within the Tipitaka. There's the Jnana Pitaka, and that's the rules and origin rules for the monks and the nuns, which we don't really deal with. There's the Abhidhamma Pitaka, which is the Buddhist analysis of mind and mental processes. It includes things like philosophy, psychology, and ethics. It's a real detailed analysis. Someone told me it was like every mind moment can be mapped. But we don't really use that one because it's more of an academic source reference. Then the third division is the Sutta Pitaka. And you hear us talking about in here Sutta a lot. We're going to be starting the Sutta Summer Series in a couple of weeks. The Sutta Pitaka is the collection of discourses attributed to the Buddha and a few of his disciples and contain all the central teachings of Theravada Buddhism. The Sutta means thread, so it's that teaching all the way through. Those are the teachings. The Sutta Pitaka, and you want to take a sutta, just think of a discourse or teaching. There's over 10,000 suttas. And they're divided up into 5 collections, or what they call Nikayas. There's 5 Nikayas. And I'm really bad at these names. Digha Nikaya is the long discourses. It's one. The Majjhima Nikaya is the middle length discourses. And this is the one we use a lot because this has I talked about the Satipatthana Sutta on the 4 foundations of mindfulness is in here. The Anapanasati Sutta on the mindfulness of breathing is in here. There's the Samayutta Nikaya, the connected group discourses. These are shorter suttas. And then these Guttara Nikaya. Y'all can see it. Yeah, there you go. These are the numerical discourses. In other words, if you want to know the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you go to the groupings of the 4. If you know about the 7 awakening factors, you go to the groups of 7. And then there's the Kundaka Nikaya. It's a division of short books. And there's only like 15 books, which include the Dhammapada, which is a lot easier to work with. And the Jakarta tales are also in there. These are animal tales of Buddha's past lives. So these are where we get the suttas. This is where we get this is the Pali canon that we really work with. And when we start talking about the suttas, that's what we're talking about. I'll give you a brief example of a sutta. This is from the Aguttarata Nikaya. It's called Listening to the Dharma. There are 5 rewards in listening to the Dharma. Which 5? 1 hears what one has not heard before. 1 clarifies what one has heard before. 1 gets rid of doubt. 1 views are made straight. 1's mind grows serene. These are the 5 rewards in listening to the Dharma. And that's a real brief sutta. So we have the Dharma. We have the big D, which is everything. We have the mental and physical elements of our existence or how I interact with life. And we have the teachings of the Buddha. So those are the 3 definitions that I've worked with as far as what the Dharma is. And they all work together. Buddhadasa Bhikkhu said there were 6 attributes of the Dharma. He wrote that it was taught comprehensively by the Buddha, who covered everything. Number 2, it is timeless and present in every immediate moment. It's timeless and it's present in every immediate moment. It's always here. Number 3, it allows us to enter Nibbana. To me, that's more like it allows us. It's a way of reducing our suffering. The 4th attribute he had, it is open to verification and does not have to be accepted on faith. 5th one, all of us can realize Dharma through our own efforts. The 6th attribute, it is known only through personal, intuitive insight. I think those last 3 are what I want to leave you with or focus on for a moment, is that it's open to verification. It doesn't have to be accepted on faith, and it's experiential. Bhikkhu Bodhi wrote that the Buddha always asked his disciples to follow him on the basis of their own understanding, not from obedience or unquestioning trust. He calls his Dharma Vipassiko, which means come and see for yourself. He invites inquirers to investigate his teaching, to examine it in the light of their own reason and intelligence, and to gain confirmation of its truth for themselves. So, and how do we do this? We do this through our meditation practice and our mindfulness practice. As we sit in here and as we practice our meditation, as we get quiet, as we allow the mind to quiet down and insights can arise, these things, we begin to see these things. We begin to understand these things. They become a part of us. We know them, and we start living them. We start living in accordance with impermanence. Start living in accordance with Dharma, with karma. We start acting out of wholesome intentions. We see that. And this is what we do in here. That's what we do. This is what our practice is all about. He also said that the Buddha said it is right for you to doubt. Doubt has arisen in you about dubious matters. Come, Kalamas. He was at a group of people. Do not rely on oral tradition or on lineage of teachers, on holy scriptures, on abstract logic. Do not place blind trust in impressive personalities or in venerated gurus, but examine the issues for yourselves. When you know for yourselves that something is unwholesome and harmful, then you should reject it. And when you know for yourselves that something is wholesome and beneficial, then you should accept it and put it into practice. So it's real important that this is what's important, that learning the Dharma, we can teach, we can read, we can hear about it, but it's real important that we practice and become almost intimate with it. It's here, it's right in front of us, it's with us all the time. So our Dharma practice then is the process of coming to understand the moment to moment unfolding of reality on all the different levels of our experience, and bringing ourselves into harmony with the truth of our lives and the laws of nature. Thank you for listening.